Folks, this is the Avengers Infinity War review from the Chad Factor. I saw it Thursday and it's now Sunday night turning into Monday morning. And my goodness, folks, my goodness, that was the best movie I've seen in a long time. Better than the first two Avengers movies. And very much so better than Avengers Civil War. Significantly better. Not a whole lot, but significantly better. But this movie, and this is a spoiler review. This is a spoiler review. So if you don't want to listen to it, go now if you don't want to hear it. But this is a spoiler review, and Thanos is the biggest villain they have faced yet. And this was a fantastic movie. So let's talk about what first happened. And if you haven't seen Thor Ragnarok, go watch Thor Ragnarok before you watch Infinity War. Watch Thor Ragnarok. If you haven't even seen any of the movies, at least go watch Thor Ragnarok and Black Panther to understand some of the things, and Captain America Civil War to understand at least a glimpse of what's going on. Okay? But it starts off with Thanos destroying stuff. We see Thanos. We see the children of Thanos, Corvus Clave, and the Mind dude, and the woman, and the big dude. I can't say all the names, but I know Corvus Clave especially. And what we see them doing is destroying Thor's ship that they were escaping from Asgard on, because Asgard got completely destroyed. And what we see is Thor trying to defend himself, and it's just Loki that they're talking, because Thor is talking to Thor, and Loki saying they have the Tesseract and to give it the Tesseract or they're going to die. And we see Loki, and we see them talking to each other and communicating with each other. And what we see is that Loki's trying to do a different plan, and then we see that Loki is about to give them the Tesseract. And what happened with that is that it says, okay, well, Thanos, we have a Hulk. And so the Hulk tries to fight Thanos. He looks good at the first few minutes. First few minutes, he was getting some punches in. But then Thanos was just eating up, and then was like, And Hulk was just, was tired, and then was pretty much beaten after that. And then Thanos goes back and then talks to Loki and says that I'm sorry and this and that, and trying to say, let me go work with you again. You know, I have experience. And then Thanos says, yeah, you got experience in failing. And then he basically keeps trying to convince Thanos that to give him a second chance, and that he can help out in destroying the world because he has experience. And it looks like he's actually about to betray not Thanos, his own brother. But in actuality, he's actually trying to give his brother time to either escape or to make a move. And he basically gets a knife and tries to stab Thanos, but Thanos grabs it in time, and then proceeds to grab his hand and then choke Loki's life right out of him. Right? Then that happens. And then it seems like all the heroes are about to go, but then one of the other dudes, one of Thor's greatest friends, ends up saving Hulk by sending him to Earth. And then Thor is left alone on the remains of the ship and his people with it, who are all dead, essentially. And it ends up getting destroyed by the Power Stone. And then they say one of them says on to Earth. And I think it's the mind reading children of Thanos that gets there. And then Hulk crash lands to Earth. We see Tony Stark. And we see Tony Stark is with Pepper Potts. And Hulk crash lands in Doctor Strange's house. And if you're not familiar with Doctor Strange's house, that's the house where Doctor Strange lives at, and where the Mismatch Arts is in the middle of New York. Again, watch Doctor Strange if you don't know the whole story behind his story and the home and his powers. and how he's connected with Thor. But go watch that movie if you haven't seen that movie either. And that's where the Hulk crash lands at. But then he's talking to Pepper Potts saying, we need to date. And, they're arguing back and forth about the new thing he has in the chest. Because he's put a new thing in his chest so he can gauge more power and understand and connect with his body so he can be more powerful and connect with his technology even better than before. So they're doing a love thing. They just got married. They're doing a love fest and they're getting along. Then suddenly, Doctor Strange appears out of nowhere in a portal and says, "We need you, Tony Stark." And then they argue a little bit, Pepper Potts and Dr. Tony Stark. And they argue a good bit. And she says, "You better be home soon for dinner." Because she hates him always trying to make time for superhero stuff, but she wants more time to him so they can hang out and get dinner and things of that nature. So they go back to Doctor Strange's house where he meets Bruce Banner again, and he sees Dr. Wong and the whole gang and the whole 9 yards. And it's pretty much a reunion. And then Bruce explains that Thanos is coming because he can remember what the Hulk saw and how he felt like he knows that Thanos is a huge threat. And so what happens with that is he talks about Thanos, talks about the Infinity Stones, talks about how he's going to destroy the entire universe if they don't try to destroy him and get rid of him and defeat him. And then he says, where's Captain America? Where's Black Widow? Where's the rest of the gang? And Tony basically says that we're not the same team anymore because we've broken up. And again, if you have not watched Captain America Civil War to know about how they broke up and what the whole situation was go watch Captain America Civil War. If you don't know. You gotta watch some of these movies to understand the whole dynamic of the story here. And basically says that Tony and Captain America are not on good terms. They don't want to talk to each other. And he doesn't want to be around him. And Bruce basically says, "Listen, dude, okay, the universe is about to be destroyed. You need to get your little quibble. I mean, even if it's emotional, the entire universe is at stake. So give him a call." So before he gets him a call, they hear a loud banging noise, and this is they're still in Doctor Strange's house, and we see that people are running, and he opens the door, and people are running, people are doing, and the big thing from the sky comes out, and it's one of Thanos' children, the Mystic One, the Mind Reader, or something like that, and the big giant dwarf dude that comes into play. And so what happens with that is that they're finding out just how big a forces Thanos has and just how powerful just some of his underlings are. Okay? Having these big futuristic spaceships in the sky and them crash landing in New York. New York seems to be a big target in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whether it's the invasion of New York in 2012 or the Marvel characters with Luke Cage, the Defenders. It seems New York is a big spot for superhero and crazy supernatural stuff to happen at. It just seems to me. But pretty much Tony Stark is looking for it, and Doctor Strange is coming with him to fight. And Bruce is trying to awaken the Hulk, but the Hulk doesn't want to be awakened for some reason. So they ended up fighting one of the children of Thanos, and then Stark turns on his uniform, and instead of it engaging, it comes through his skin, and then it gets on him. The suit is vicious. You gotta look at that suit. That suit is vicious. It's sweet. Okay. And then this happens, and then they fight. He fights the dwarf, and then Doctor Strange fights the Mystic Man, and both sides are pretty much fighting on an equal playing term. They're both really going at it. Doctor Strange gets knocked out, and then his sweater basically protects him, but the Mystic Man ends up getting Doctor Strange into the ship. But on the other side, Wong and Iron Man actually take care of the Dwarf Beast and end up defeating him, but they put him all the way in Antarctica. And then he loses his arm because Wong closed the port and loses his arm. And that's what happens with that. So that happens, and then Tony Stark goes after the Mystic Man and Doctor Strange. And Spider-Man, I almost forgot, Spider-Man was actually, I'm sorry about this, Tim Holland, the Spider-Man actually was one of the ones that helped defeat the dwarf as well. I mean, the big dwarf, one of Thanos' men as well. Sorry about skipping that part, folks. But yeah, Spider-Man was involved in that, and then Spider-Man followed the spaceship first in his regular, everyday suit. And then Tony followed him to go and rescue. Because he was initially, Iron Man was trying to give him his suit to go home. Because he gave him a new suit. He gave him the new technology suit that we saw at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming. Again, if you want to understand this, you got to watch some of these Marvel movies. And then they both got into the ship. And they both infiltrated the area. So while that's going on, I'm going to tell you what happens with that. But as that's going on, the Guardians of the Galaxy appear. We see Groot's grown up. We see this is some years after the second Avengers movie. And we see that they got the distress signal that Thor initially called for help. And what happens with that is that he ends up, it's a void of nothing. It's just complete chaos. It's just complete narcissism, craziness going on. There's just debris everywhere, okay? And they said, what's going on? Why can't we see anything? And then suddenly, Thor is in space, crashed on the ship. They get him in, nurse him back to health, put him in, get him comfortable, and then Mantis actually ends up saving him. Okay, waking him up from his slumber. And then Thor says, "Who the hell are you guys?" And they talk about what's going on with, and then Thor talks to them about what's going on with Thanos, Star-Lord and Thor have like a funny thing together where they're arguing back and forth, and Star-Lord has his voice, "How are you today, sir?" And it's a funny exchange. It's just funny. You gotta watch it. It's like British accent versus British accent. It's like that Thor Ragnarok thing. It's just hilarious, right? But then Thor explains about how powerful Thanos is, and that he's already got the Power Stone, the Tesseract, and he ended up destroying Xandar. Now, we all know that the Power Stone, again, watch the Marvel movies if you need to understand all this, in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, that the Power Stone was initially in Xandar. Apparently, and it's not in the movie, they took over Xandar and just destroyed everything. So it's complete wasteland right now. And Thanos did that to get the Power Stone. Now I don't know why they didn't show that part in the movie. I think that would have been useful because they have such a great defense system. And since they had the power of the Power Stone, I don't know why they couldn't defend themselves. But apparently they got defeated pretty easily for him to just get it. So we find that out. We find out how powerful he is, that destroyed his people. And pretty much they had an agreement to where that Thor needed to get a rocket from a big dwarf dude that makes weapons. Okay. And he's going to him to make a weapon to actually kill Thanos. To actually kill Thanos. So that happens. So they set up in the two teams, Groot, the raccoon, Rocket, if you want me to say his name, Rocket and Thor go to the Smith to go to him. Meanwhile, the Guardians of the Galaxy are going to the Collector because Thor told him where the Reality Stone is. They go to the Collector to make sure the Reality Stone is safe, so they're going over there to make sure it is. So then we go back to. Well, actually, you know what? We go back to the not the ship where Doctor Strange. We go back to Holland where Scarlet Witch and Vision are basically having a love fest, and they're basically getting along, and they're trying to contemplate whether they want to stay here or leave there because there's chaos in New York, and he promised Tony that he would leave and that he would be fine, and that he was going to leave so he can, you know, keep the stone and the world safe. And Scarlet says, no, stay with me so you don't have to leave, so you don't have to do that. And as they're arguing, Corvus Clay and his wife comes and basically attack them. And actually, they're doing pretty well against them. They're actually doing pretty well against them, against Corvus Clay and his wife. And they're actually beating them back and forth, and they're hiding, they're running, they're doing this, blast. It was a good fight. It was a good mini fight. But then as they're fighting, Corvus Clay is about to take, because he tried to take his stone the first time, but he tried to take it again. And then as they're trying to take it the second time, Captain America shows up. And Corvus Clay's wife tries to throw something at him. He did like this. Got it. Then Black Widow shows up. Not Hawkeye. Sam Wilson. The Falcon shows up. Beats him pretty easily. All three of them beat them pretty easily, and were able to make them retreat and to fall back. And they end up being beamed up to retreat. And then they have a conversation about what's going on in New York and what's happening. And apparently, the Don Cheadle's character, the Silver Iron Man. I'm bad with names on some of the superheroes. But then we go. Then we go back to the ship. And on the ship, with Corvus Clay, Spider-Man and Iron Man plan out what they're gonna do, and Iron Man's mad at Spider-Man for not following his directions, going back home and do this, and then Spider-Man. There's a lot of cultural features in this. There's a lot of cultural sayings in this from the 80s, so be prepared for that. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty funny. And then they basically ambush the mind dude, the mind reader, sorcery dude. That's the Doctor Strange of the Thanos team. And then Spider-Man makes a hole into the ship, and then dude gets swiped out, saves Doctor Strange, and dude dies outside. That's the one of the children of Thanos dying. Okay? And then what also happens is they have a talk. They talk a little bit. Talk about, that Doctor Strange basically says, listen, I care about the world. I care about you too. Because they're trying to say they want to get away. Doctor Strange is trying to say get away from Thanos. And then Tony Stark is saying we need to take the fight to him because he doesn't know we're coming. Okay? And pretty much Doctor Strange caves in and says, listen, if we fight him one-on-one, you're on your own. Because my first priority is this time stone. And that's not the way he says it. Like, my first priority is this time stone. Okay? So that's the way he puts it. And they go on the ship, and they keep going towards where Thanos is to actually fight him. So, they keep going to where the last location where he is, and they go on his former home planet because they believe that he'll probably come back there. And then we go to the ship again. We go to the Guardians of the Galaxy where they actually find the collector's place, and it looks normal. It looks like Thanos just trashed it. But then we find out that that he has the Reality Stone because he made it seem like Gamora killed him and stabbed him. And basically all that happened was that he had the Reality Stone. He already trashed the Collector's entire planet. He trashed his place. He's pretty much dead. Okay? Pretty much dead. Just dead. And he took the Reality Stone away from him. And that happens. And then Thanos attacks Mantis and Drax, and then they end up turning into, one turns into a party favorite, the other one turns into parts of himself, and then they basically have an argument back and forth saying and he's trying to make Star-Lord, because Gamora asked Star-Lord to kill her. He couldn't kill her. He almost killed her, but it ended up being bubbles that come out the gun and saying you're a good friend. And Thanos kidnapped Gamora. Star-Lord tries to go after him, and Thanos gets away with Gamora, which is his daughter, by the way, if you haven't read the comic or know anything about that. Sorry, I'm just, this review, going through this whole movie is just, this was a good movie. And that's what happens. And then they're forced to try to see what's going on and where he's going. And so we go back to Thanos, and we find out that Thanos was trying to make Gamora, was torturing her sister. Her sister Nebula almost killed Thanos. Surprisingly, she actually legitimately almost killed Thanos. She was a lot closer than what I would think, but she was very close to doing it. Even Thanos said she was close. Yeah. And then she tortures Nebula to make Gamora tell him where the Soul Stone is. Long story short, they get to the Soul Stone. Red Skull is there, guarding the stone. That's where he was teleported. He was teleported there in the first Captain America movie. So they find Red Skull. Red Skull tells him, you had to sacrifice everything you love to get the Soul Stone. Gamora teases him and says, you don't love anything, you just care about yourself. Turns out, Thanos was crying and getting teary-eyed because he actually does love Gamora. And what do you think happens? He sacrifices Gamora, throws her over the cliff to get the Soul Stone. So he can get the power to do what he wants to do, which is take out half the universe. Which is what his goal is. Then we get back to Earth, where the people are trying to gather up their people and try to go against so Don Shinum gets the Avengers back home. He basically says that Ross can't be, has no authority in this issue, and they basically threatens Captain America and threatens them as criminals. And he says, and the Falcon says, you made us criminals. And Captain America says, I'm not listening to anything you say anymore, because I want to save the Earth. I want to save this planet. And the Secretary of State Ross basically tries to make Don Cheadle's character arrest them, and he says, I'm not going to arrest them. So he's basically going against the Accords, which is very, 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 very brave of him to do, because the universe is at stake, and you want me to still think of them as criminals. And again, if you want to look at what the Accords are really about, personally, they're pretty much bullcrap. Like I said, I'm for less government. I'm not for more government regulation. And it's basically a regulation of superheroes about what they can or can't do. Okay? So you want to know more about the Accords, why they didn't want to do the Accords, what was their whole argument about the Accords, watch Captain America Civil War to understand that issue. So after that happens, after he hangs up on Ross, they say, who are we going to work with? And then Captain America says, I know a guy. And then we go straight to Wakanda, Black Panther's homeland. And then apparently Black Panther told them how he can get through Wakanda and how he can get to it. And they end up going through the same way. And if you've seen Black Panther, that was just released in February. Go watch that movie if you don't understand. But how they have a holographic system to make it look like it's forest, but it's really just a hologram. Oh, excuse me. And it's really just a hologram. Go watch that movie. But we see what happens. They meet the Wakandians. They meet King T'Challa, Bruce Banner, Don Cheadle, the whole gang. The Captain America's all with them, and they end up shaking hands and telling them what's happening, who's attacking who, what's going on, and they ended up forming a team. And they send Vision to his sister Shuri to make sure they try to destroy the Soul Stone. They get Bucky back from Wakanda and with a new vibranium arm. Sweet. And basically they formulate a plan. And then as they're trying to formulate a plan to go against Thanos, they're attacked by some of the children of Thanos. Okay, to Wakanda, but the shield that covers all of Wakanda is protecting them. Now we go back to space with Thor and Rocket Raccoon and Groot, where he actually finds out that the place where they're talking about, where the dwarf is, the tall dwarf. And the dwarf was about to fight Thor, but he recognizes Thor. And apparently, the dwarf was the one that forged the Infinity Gauntlet that was used to power the Infinity Stones. Okay? And he did this to save his people so they wouldn't get killed. But instead, Thanos kills them all anyway. Even though he did that work for him. So they provided that they wanted to make a weapon, make an axe that would kill Thanos for good. But Thor has to open up the lava to make sure, and he has to handle taking all that light and lava. Well, not lava, it's sunlight. It's piercing sunlight. It's like thousands of degrees hot that he has to handle to make this axe. He does it, he handles it, he almost faints. But they're able to make the axe, and he gets his weapon again. It's pretty much similar to the hammer, but it's actually stronger than the hammer. So that's what happens. Then we're still in space. We find out that they found Thanos' place, and then as one of Thanos' ships crashed down, they thought that was Thanos in the ship, but really it was Tony, Doctor Strange, and Peter Parker, Spider-Man. And what happens with that is that they fight each other. They don't know who or what is going on, but they ended up getting along and saying, we want to kill Thanos too. And there was a funny exchange between Star-Lord and Iron Man. They basically get along, and they basically force a plan to try to call Thanos to come to the place to jump him and to steal his gauntlet. Then, as that's going on, we fast forward to the big battle in Wakanda. With them dropping things on the force field, these beings that are stronger than the T'Chari from the first movie, they're just getting in that force field. They're trying to get through it. They almost get through it, but they keep getting killed. And as they're trying to get through the force field, half of them, if not most of them, end up getting killed. And as they're trying to do, they're trying to get around the force field. But T'Challa, the king of Wakanda, says that we have to open part of it so they won't get around the air. Now, I think that's a terrible plan. I would just say let them die, let their forces die, and then they can get other people around to make sure that they don't get killed or anybody else tries to get behind it. Because you got to have a force to protect your country to make sure nobody does anything. So he brings all his forces from Wakanda to come, and he ends up opening part of that force field. So all of Thanos' enemies come out. They're fighting Captain America, Bucky Barnes, Hawkeye, Bruce Banner's in like a big Iron Man like Hulk, but in the Hulk Buster that was first seen in Age of Ultron. Because he can't use Hulk, he wants to fight another way, and they're battling, they're fighting, they're actually win the fight, but the Hulk Buster gets overwhelmed. The enemies find a way underground, and the woman, who's the woman's name? Black Widow, and Black Widow fights the one of the Thanos, the children of Thanos, the woman children of Thanos, with one of the ladies, one of the Walking Dead's character. I keep forgetting her name, but the black woman, dark-skinned black woman, Michonne's character from The Walking Dead. They end up fighting the woman, and it was a good fight. They were really going at it, and it was a really good fight. But then Wanda appears and gets out of the middle, and she helps out the battle. She ends up destroying the machines that were coming underground, and gets them at the creatures, so more of the creatures can die off. And then what also happens is that she takes the girl, one of the children of Thanos, okay, and picks her up for her powers, throws her up where the machine was up, and then she's dead. Cut. Dead. Just dead. So that's about two children of Thanos dead. Then the Hulk comes. Not the Hulk. Then Bruce Banner's character comes. Okay, they're fighting the giant dwarf monster. Fighting. He's getting overwhelmed by him, and then he shoots an arm and shoots him up in the air to the force field. Then he's dead. That's 3 children of Thanos dead. 3. Then Corvus Clay comes, and then Corvus Clay actually sneaks inside Wakanda and actually tries to get Vision. Shuri and them are trying to defend themselves, but Vision manages to get Corvus Clay. They're fighting, and he ends up actually killing Corvus Clay. So that's 4. So pretty much all the children of Thanos die in this movie, which is crazy to me because the children of Thanos are second only to Thanos, so I don't really know how they could be killed that easily. But they were good fighters. They were very strong. But I guess the Avengers were just stronger. So then back on space, they end up actually luring Thanos and getting Thanos and lure him to it, and then they set a trap for him. Mantis is messing with his mind, and all the rest of the people have him held up, and they're trying to actually get the glove off of him. But before they can get the glove off of him, Star-Lord wants to know what happened to Gamora. And he's crying, and he's basically it's a sign saying that, Mantis basically says that he's crying because he lost a loved one, and Star-Lord knows that Gamora is Thanos' daughter, and basically punches him in the face, and then people get distracted, and then he gets his glove back. As they were just about to get the glove away, he gets it back. Because Star-Lord was too much of an idiot to say, hey, hide your emotions. We can do this later. We need to get rid of this glove from Thanos, who's the most powerful being in the universe. But hey, let me just get my feelings in. So they end up having a full force fight with Thanos. Full force fight. And it was good. Iron Man and Doctor Strange got some good hits in. Iron Man was pretty much, Doctor Strange definitely improved his style of fighting since Doctor Strange, but Iron Man was killing it. He had the punch, he had the kick, he was just going in, punch, kick fast. He was lit. Okay. He was lit, but basically what happens is Thanos overwhelms them. And Thanos, before Thanos could overwhelm them, he actually stabs Tony Stark, and actually had a respect for him. And what he said was that you are a great warrior and a great man, and that I hope they remember you, and I respect you as a warrior. And he basically stabs him through it, lets him go, and then Doctor Strange, to try to spare Tony's life, gives Thanos the Time Stone. So it's just one crazy thing to another in this movie. Because when Doctor Strange was before, he was saying that he was looking at 1,000,000 possibilities to defeat Thanos. And he can only find one possibility to defeat Thanos. And I guess this was the only one. But still, I would make sure that he never gets the Time Stone. That's just me. But I'll take that risk. And then what happens is that he gets the Time Stone. Tony's basically yelling and screaming at Doctor Strange. And Thor ends up... I'm sorry. Well... And Thanos ends up getting out and going to Earth. And while that's going on, as the fight and the war of Wakanda goes, and they're kind of getting just a little bit overwhelmed, Thor jumps in, boom, God of Thunder was killing all of the children of Thanos. Beast just with his shockwave, and that he had Rocket Raccoon, Groot, and the whole gang was there. Not the Guardians of the Galaxy, but the gang that was there to get with the dwarf gets the weapon. So Thanos is just killing all the enemies. The Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes was shooting around with Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon has a funny exchange. Says, "Can I borrow that gun? Can I buy how much for that gun?" It says, "Not for sale." And he says, "Okay." And they keep shooting. So they're winning the war. They're going at it. And as they're winning the war against them, Thanos shows up. Thanos shows up. The Vision is, Thanos is fighting all the Avengers that are trying to prevent him to go to Vision. Vision, Scarlet Witch ends up destroying Vision's Mind Stone, and she's crying while she's doing it. But even though she destroyed the stone itself with her power, guess what Thanos did? Thanos used the Time Stone to recreate what happened to get the stone. He plucks the stone right out of Vision, and he has all the stones. Ain't that a motherfricker? Maybe you shouldn't have given the Time Stone to Thanos, Doctor Strange. Ever thought about that? Maybe you can hide it somewhere else. Maybe risk Tony's life so they wouldn't get the Time Stone. So, he has all the stones in his possession. Thor finds Thor finds Thanos, and basically Thor is overtaking Thanos. Thanos uses his fist, uses his power to come at Thor. Thor uses axe. The axe is waving all of the force field out, and then stabs Thanos right through the gut. And as Thanos is dying, he should have said, "You should have went for the head." And then snaps his fingers. The glove's completely destroyed. And then as Thor is yelling at Thanos, half the universe starts disappearing. I mean T'Challa. I mean Bucky Barnes. I mean Scarlet Witch. Okay, some of the Wakandan soldiers. Groot even meets his maker. Spider-Man, Drax, Star-Lord. People just start disappearing like a mother trucker. Like a mother trucker, okay? It was crazy. It was sad. You will, like I said, you will not be ready when you see this. You will not be ready when you see this crazy thing going on. I mean, listen, this is probably one of the best Marvel movies or the best Marvel movies ever. Right next to, say, Captain America Civil War and the other Avengers movies. Okay? To me, I say Captain America Civil War and then the Avengers. Because the first Avengers movie. Because the first Avengers movie was better than Age of Ultron to me, anyway. Even though I like seeing all of them go together, the first Avengers movie was better than the first. And I say Captain America Civil War is the best out of them. Then the Avengers movie, then this movie, and then Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier was lit. But this movie right here changed the game. And it all ends with half of them disappearing, all those characters dying, disappearing in the dust. And then Thanos is in a orange space, could be inside the Soul Stone, and sees a child like Gamora. And then Gamora asks him, "How much did you sacrifice?" And I said, "Everything." And then you gotta sit into the entire movie to see this and to see and I'm gonna spoil the last scene. But if you go to the movie theater and say the entire movie, okay, you will see Samuel L. Jackson finally with his agent, and then they crash into a car, and then the helicopter crashes, and you find out that the agent and him are disappearing. But as Samuel L. Jackson is disappearing into ashes, he gets off a call, and he on an old school pager, and he calls and then it's a Miss Marvel emblem that comes up of the superhero Miss Marvel. So I think that's a hint to say that Miss Marvel might be in Avengers Infinity War Part 2, hopefully. But I can't wait to see that Miss Marvel movie coming up in 2019 in March, which is my birthday month, by the way. But I definitely think that it was a little bit fast-paced. Just a little bit. So I'll give it about a 9.5 out of 10. Not perfect, but it's still lit as a mother freaker. You will not recover after you watch this movie. Watch this mother freaking movie. It will change you. And if you're a superhero fan, it's crazy. Whether you're DC or Marvel. To me, I used to be a DC fan, but I gotta admit, Marvel makes the best freaking movies and knows how to tell a heck of a story. But go watch this movie. I might watch it again. I might watch it again, but it's gonna take me 2 weeks to watch it again. Because I'm recovering from this whole story and this climatic, crazy, chaotic, sad event. Okay. 9.5 out of 10. Go watch the movie. And again, if you want to understand even a semblance of it, go watch Thor Ragnarok. Black Panther and Captain America Civil War, if you want to understand even a little bit of it. Anyway, folks, this is the Chad Factor of my review of Avengers Infinity War. Go watch that motherfucking movie. Love it. You're going to love it. Peace.